at your worst, you gotta keep your vision. That's the only way that you gon' keep ascending. Gotta keep ascending. Oh yeah. Gotta keep ascending. Yeah. Even at your worst, you gotta keep your vision. That's the only way that you gon' keep ascending. Her pain is my pain. Her struggle's my struggle. Keep ascending. This world we live in is so unforgiving. We all have setbacks, but the comeback make the biggest difference. Yeah, what doesn't kill you make you more resilient. So even when your world is falling down, you gotta keep ascending. Gotta keep ascending. Oh yeah, gotta keep ascending. Yeah.
All right. We here. Happy Sunday, everybody. I am your host, Toni Rochelle, and welcome to Ascending with Toni Rochelle. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is, oh my God, this is season 1, episode number 10. We made it to number 10. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Believe Radio, for believing in the platform. Thank you, community, for watching. Thank you for all your inputs. Thank you for all the guests that have came on the show and sat here and let me get all up in y'all business. And just I'm just feel so blessed and honored to have this position, to have this platform, to share this platform with everyone. Because like I always say, it's not just my platform, it's our platform. This platform was created for healness and wellness, and for you to not feel like you alone when you're going through life. Because how many of us know that life shows up whenever it feels like it? It don't have an agenda. It don't have an appointment. It just comes whenever it feels like it. And sometimes it knocks us down, and we feel like, why is this happening to us? Why is this happening to me? Why am I going through this situation? Why me? Why me? Why me? And sometimes you just feel alone. Well, when you come on this platform, when you sit here with your girl, when you listen to all these stories, and these are real stories by real people in our community that have gotten over what has come against them. You know, use this platform. That's what this platform is created for. I hope everybody had a beautiful Thanksgiving. Y'all, I have been working out. All the way up until Thanksgiving. I went on a fast from no sugar. I was doing real good. And then here come Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving come along, and my plate was stacked full, y'all. And you know how you cook? So when you cook, you feel like you're not going to eat a lot. Okay. I ate like 2-3 times more than what I should have. So when I get back in the gym tomorrow, it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt. I can feel it already, but I'm going to eat some more tonight as I watch the Soul Train Music Awards. And I'm going to have me another big old plate with 2 more pieces of sweet potato pie that my mama made me and some chocolate cake. And then I'm going to be done until Christmas, y'all. So I hope that you guys had a beautiful Thanksgiving. Hope that you got to spend time with your loved ones and your friends and eat some yummy food and take some naps and watch some football game. For those of y'all don't know, I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan, and I don't know if y'all was watching the game because I was watching the game because they won. Shout out to my Dallas Cowboy fans. Shout out to my Cowboys. We did that on Thanksgiving. Yes, thank you. I know there's some haters out there, but that's okay. We still love y'all. That's what keep us going. But speaking of keep going, that's what ascending is about, y'all. Leveling up. When I think about ascending, I think about it on many different levels. I think about it as, not staying stagnant, not being in the same place. So this year you might be in this place, right? But next year around this time, you may have a goal that you want to be at a higher level. That's ascending. Ascending is also that, you get this bad news, and when you get this bad news, it may make you feel angry or sad or, upset. And it's okay. It's okay to be sad for a little bit. It's okay to be mad, or, it's okay to even be stuck. But it's also a way of making a decision to not stay in that situation. That's ascending. Ascending could also mean that, like, you thought that, You thought that this was the position that you wanted to be in. You thought you was going to school for this, but then all of a sudden you went back to school and got your doctorates, or you got your bachelor's, or whatever, like whatever it is that you wanted to do. It's many different definitions of ascending. And one of the things that we all have, I believe that we all have went through when it comes to life, is something that's called grief. Whew. Just saying the word is heavy on my heart when I just say the word. Um, I have had the, I don't want to say the pleasure, but I have had grief come up in my life where I didn't know how to deal with it. I didn't know how to keep going. I didn't know why the Lord decided to take that person out of my life. You know, I didn't know how long I was supposed to cry about it. I didn't know how long I was supposed to feel sad about it. Um, and I even thought about, like, why didn't God take me when they took that person? Or why wouldn't they just take me instead of taking that person? Or why do people even have to die? You know? And what I realized, what I found out is that when it comes to grief, everyone has to deal with it on their own. There's levels of it. There's levels of it. And I had a friend, one of my friends, I remember her mom passing away, and she was so sad. Like, she was just so sad. Like, for a long, 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 long time, she was sad. And every time I see her, she just would be just sad because she missed her mom. And I remember it went on for about a whole year. She was actually my next door neighbor, so I had the pleasure of seeing her every single day, just about. And when you have your friends or your family, you want to uplift them. You want to bring happiness into their life. You don't want them to be sad. You don't want them to be hurting. And I swear I did everything I could try to do to, like, make her happy, or change her mood, or do something to brighten up her day. Or I tried, and I realized, she couldn't get out of that sadness. She couldn't get out of that brokenheartedness of losing her mom. And I really just didn't understand that until I went through it. I went through grief, and I lost somebody that was really, really close to me. One of my best friends. She was like a big sister. She was my stylist. She was my everything. She was my number one fan. And now I realize, okay, I understand how she felt now, because I lost someone very special to me. And I haven't had to go through um a lot of grief. I haven't lost a lot of people. But as an adult, within the last couple of years, I have lost a lot of people. Um, and I know people that have seen death and had to deal with grief their entire life, just growing up in a certain environment, or just having sick people in their family, or just friends passing away. And to me, when I think about grief, I think about, people should die when they're when they're older, maybe through a sickness, or, after they've lived this long, beautiful life. But that's not the case sometimes. And sometimes you just don't know how to deal with that. And so today on the show, that's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about grief. We're going to be talking about how you can ascend through it. And just also, by me saying that, I don't mean that when I say ascend through it, I don't mean that you have to just completely get over it and that it don't no longer exist. What I mean by that is how to get through it. Don't let it keep you stagnant. I'm gonna just stop right there because I got my guest in the building. She's here. I'm eager to talk to her. I'm ready to hear her perspective on this subject of grief and how she has ascended through life. Now, I was practicing offline to say her name correctly. I'm gonna just tell y'all, because I don't keep no secrets from y'all. And if anybody know me, I have a hard time saying people's names, but names are important. So this is the introduction, okay? I have my guest in the building, Miss Eileen Pippins. I hope I said it right. She's laughing. Here she go. Here she
Oh my God. Bless your heart. Bless your heart. Um, Remember, only my close friends can call me Pimpin. There's no M.
But can I be a people close friend today.
Today you'll be my close friend, Toni.
Thank you.
Today
Thank
you'll be
you. I
my
love
close
you.
friend.
I'm nervous. I'm nervous. Do you know that I get nervous each and every time that I get the opportunity to talk on this mic, to be live in front
Wow.
of the audience? I don't know what it is, but it's like I've never spoken to you before. I've never had the opportunity to sit down and have a conversation with you. So every time I sit here, I get nervous, because I want to do a good job. I want to show up, with my best self. And so that's what it's about. It's nothing personal. That
You know,
means
I
that
tried
I
into
love
your head, not your heart. And I find it a blessing that I am your 10th guest.
you. Yeah.
In First Chronicles 4 and 10, that is when Jabez was granted all that he requested from the Lord. So this is a blessed. Thank you for adding to the territory of my name, I guess. Enlarging my coast.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, I am so honored that you said yes to come on, to let me have a conversation with you, to let me be in your business, to bring this subject to community, this heavy subject. And we're gonna get right into it. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
You ready? Okay. Okay. So when you think about the word ascending, what does that mean to you?
Ascending, ascending means rising. For me, rising above. It's rising above whatever. It could be rising above the moment, rising above your feelings, rising above your past, rising above limiting beliefs, rising out of blocks, generational curses. It's rising above. It is like I think about things in the water, and specifically the oceans. So you think about whales and dolphins. They come from the depth of the water and they rise to the top to get air, to replenish themselves. Because they live in the water, they live in the ocean, but they still need air to replenish. So ascending is rising above the surface.
I love that. And I love when my guests come on and y'all all have your own different perspectives of what the word means. So thank you for that.
Mhm.
Thank you so much.
You're
So
welcome.
you sound great. Okay. So we got some people in the chat. Thank you for everyone that's in the chat showing love already.
I can't see the chat.
Yeah, well, the chat is coming up. They giving you some love. They said hi
Hi,
and
Deirdre. Deirdre
faces.
on stage. I only see her because it's flashing up on top.
There you go. There you go. Now you can see the people talking back to us right there.
Okay.
They here. They in the building. Hey, everybody. Hey, community. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure y'all continue to talk to us because we love to have questions and comments and everything to let us know that y'all listening. So when you think of grief, tell me a time where you had to ascend through grief.
Hmm. I think the first time I can remember grieving, two things come to mind. Um, one day, every Sunday, my mother used to be in the kitchen and we'd listen to KSOL because they played. Whoo, yes, I'm dating myself. Y'all go on the internet, on the interwebs, and Google KSOL radio. But she would play gospel music, and I remember one day my grandmother had visited me, my mother's mother, and I remember I was just sitting in front of the TV like Carol Ann on Poltergeist, just crying out, calling for my grandmother. And my mother was I just remember her in the background calling somebody because she was like, she won't stop crying. And she's calling for mother, and she's called her mother. And she just started crying because I was inconsolable. And I'm calling for her mother who's been gone. And I remember it was when my grandmother didn't come that I felt this heaviness, and I didn't have a word for it. And nobody on either side of my family talked to the kids about grief. And so my grandmother died when I was 3 going on 4. And I remember the next time I really grieved was when my mother's brother, her only brother, my uncle, died when I was in high school. And I remember being so sad and missing him so much. He was really good at math, but he wasn't a good teacher. So I remember when I was in the 7th grade, he's trying to help me with some math. And I was like, oh, okay, uncle, I got it. And I faked like I had it. But when he died, when I was in high school, I remember grieving this loss of never being able to have him help me because he died of complications from Parkinson's. And I'll never forget that. It was for 3 months. I had a nightmare that 3 months straight, that his coffin was in my bedroom. Like that was the only furniture in there. And I could never get out of the room. My mother, her sisters, my cousins, we never talked about grief. So even in high school. So those are my earliest memories of grieving, where I felt this like really big heaviness. Yeah.
Why do you think that
Say it one more time. Your mic was breaking up.
Why do you think that's a subject that we really don't talk about?
I think that, well, from old school, to save our kids, to try and spare them the pain, they just didn't talk about taboo subjects like death or even racism when I was coming up. Just certain things. Because I grew up in Richmond. So I remember my father told me once, we were talking about San Pablo because I lived in South Richmond. And I remember he said, yeah, back in the day, you couldn't be caught crossing San Pablo. It was against the law to cross San Pablo after dark. And I was like, and my parents were divorced. So I was like, no, it's not. Ain't no law like that. And I just remember the look. He looked at me like he wanted to say something, but unbeknownst to me, I discounted his experience. But they never talked to me about color laws, them sundown laws. They were high in El Cerrito. El Sobrante still got the Klan. It was all these cities in the Bay Area, even though we were so diverse. And I was part of the busing programs to different schools to help diversify. But I remember, I'll never forget that look on his face and the silence. Like he wanted to say something, but he didn't tell me. So, I think they, especially about grieving, like those transgressed emotions, transgression if you exhibit anger or pain or grief because other people don't want to experience it with you. They don't know how. And maybe it could be because they also weren't allowed themselves.
Yeah. Well, I know the funerals today, they're like a real homecoming. I mean, people they have birds that they give out, doves that they have these long, I mean, it's like a celebration.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they have the spray paints on their clothes, the t-shirts, is nothing like I ever remember growing up. And I'm not really sure when that transition happened from funerals being such a celebration. Would you say the same?
Yeah, well, my experience with funerals is different than my experience with death. So when my grandmother died, my mother's mother, I promise you that funeral was like imitation of life. The church was spilled out. I didn't even know my grandmother knew that many people. She was a mother of her church. She was Kojic, Church of God in Christ, for those that you don't know Black church language. And I just remember it was so packed, and my mom and her sisters apparently spent so much money on the funeral. After that, from the time I was 3, my mother always said, "Don't you spend a lot of money on my funeral. Funerals are for the living. You put me in a pine box." And I didn't understand that as a child, but she said it our whole lives.
Yeah.
And so when my uncle died, I remember I was with them at the funeral home and they were trying to upsell them on all this stuff. And I remember my aunt was like, we could do that. We could write the obituary. We're not going to spend all that money. So I'll never forget that my mother always said that funerals are for the living. So while some people may say, "Oh, you doing too much," in West African cultures, Nigeria and in Ghana, there are these big, beautiful ceremonies for mourning the loss of someone, and you put them in a coffin that represents their life and what they would carry forward. And we look at it like sometimes that people are doing too much, but it is for us, and it is for the way that we want to celebrate the person that we're grieving, that we miss.
It's interesting that we go out loud for the funerals, but then we don't talk about the subject of grief.
You better talk about it.
I mean, that was my whole point. Like, we have this big celebration. We do all these things for the funeral service. We spend all this money. We do these traditions, but then you hear stories like what you just said, that you didn't get educated on what grief was. That wasn't a subject to talk about. Like, there's many subjects in our community that we don't talk about, and we don't find out until we're an adult. And so I'm just trying to figure out, like, why is that more important than actually talking about the subject?
I think it's just for Black folks. I can only speak for Black folks. That we have not been given the liberty to express grief. We weren't allowed to grieve the removal, the stripping, the stealing of our families, being torn away from our families, and being sold and generationally literally holding up this republic on our backs while still trying to be recognized as human and trying to recognize each other as human. So when it comes to grief, I think that as Black people, we just have not leaned into making it a ritual to accept and acknowledge grief. It comes down to, again, if we celebrate the life, we don't have to talk about the pain of them not being here.
Ooh, there it is.
And oftentimes it's hard to find someone else who's experienced it, who can help you process that. I remember one of my girlfriends had told me when her mother died, her first holiday or her first Mother's Day, she only said Happy Mother's Day to other people who've lost their mothers. And I didn't understand that until I lost my mother. And I was like, oh, even for the people who my mother loved as second daughters, like, I could reach out to them, but it really felt somewhat alone. But I felt comfort talking with other people who have lost their mothers, specifically daughters. Yeah. I think we have to give ourselves the grace to keep practicing experiencing and holding on to and honoring these transgressed emotions.
Yeah. First, I'm sorry you lost your mom. When that happened, what was like little steps that you did to keep yourself going?
Ooh.
The specific things.
I don't remember much. The first 9 months. No. The day that my mother died, I knew she was making her transition when I left the hospital, and I was just on autopilot. So I had reached out to aunts, didn't find relief there. Because again, they don't want to talk about it. They're losing their sister. So, but I'm losing my mother. I don't know this. I don't know this life. So I lost your mother. And I became an orphan within 2 months. So imagine becoming an orphan as an adult. Like, I just remember my mother died in December, and that following August, because I don't remember much from that point, from the time she died until like mid-August the following year. And I remember it had been like 4 days where I was in my apartment, and I remember I hadn't showered. I don't remember brushing my teeth. I wasn't talking to anybody. I remember somebody brought me some food and I didn't eat it. And I just remember I woke up one day and I said, oh, this is too long. And I just heard like the Shawshank Redemption, Morgan Freeman's voice. Or no, it was, what was his name? Tim Robbins. I said, you got to get busy living or get busy dying. And I was like, from that point on, I just made a declaration. I said, when I need to grieve, I will not spend more than 24 hours at a time doing it. So I will grieve and honor that's pain or what I'm feeling, but I got to keep moving. And if it meant I grieve this day, the next day I'm busy doing something. And if when the next day comes and I still need to grieve, I will do that. But I'm breaking up the pattern. So something clicked inside me that
Yeah.
said I was isolating too much. And I was very blessed because I was connected with a group through hospice for daughters who lost their mothers. Like I couldn't even my brothers and I, we all grieve so differently. So we didn't get to talk about it. But
Right.
I found community. And so one of the things that I did is first I made a declaration that um I will honor my grief.
You made a decision.
I made a decision, and that I had to do it in a way that would honor also my parents, because my mother died last. So I had to say this, that, they gave me life. So I got to honor this whenever God decides to take me out, but I can't grieve away the pain.
Yeah,
I can feel the grief. I don't know if that makes sense.
it did. And it sounds like you got tired of being stuck. You got tired of feeling that way. As you said, you were isolating yourself and you realized that's what was happening. And you was like, you got to snap out of that. You
Mhm.
know, congratulations on that, making that decision, recognizing that. Um, and I think a lot of times we don't recognize it, so we're not able to actually make that decision to do what you did. So that's brave of you.
Yeah.
But you also said something that was really important, that you found community. You found a group, and you were able to have assistance. That's what it sounds like.
I found community and I also found my voice. I
Yeah.
started talking about it. A lot of people, when we're grieving, you could be grieving a relationship. Oh,
Mm.
I remember I told God, this was after my mom died. I remember I was my ex. I said, Lord, please just make him not come call me no more, Lord. I can't quit him. And then the Lord answered my prayer. And then I thought my phone was broke, so I had to call him. I was like, why isn't he calling? I forgot I said, Lord, I forgot I prayed, Lord, let him stop calling. And I heard the Lord say, Claire said, would you ask me? So when I asked it again, I allowed myself to grieve the loss and release of that relationship. And
Mhm.
I talked to my sister friends about it. I talked to my girlfriends about it. I talked to my therapist about it. And it was that talking about it. A lot of times, once we realize that we're in grief, if you don't talk about it, find someone to talk about it, therein comes your community. But it first starts with you using your voice, because people don't know, especially if they're not used to you sharing those pieces of you. People don't know. They know something's going on, but they don't know it's grief. And then they don't know how to hold space for you.
And you brought me back into my next question, or my next comment I was going to say, because grief is just not losing a person to death. Grief could be many different things, such as getting a divorce, losing a job, like you said, breaking up with your boyfriend or your girlfriend, or a habit, some type of habit that you was so connected to, and you had to divorce it, you had to get over it. That those things feel like grief sometimes. Um, and those are the feelings of losing something,
Mhm.
something that no longer exists. Um, can you talk more about that? Because that's exactly what I was going to say next, and you brought it right into what I was thinking.
Mhm. Yeah. Um, um, I remember, so when I let him go, him who shall not be named, because we
Hmm.
don't go back. Um, I remember, I remember grieving a job. I had a job. It was like, I remember my hair was falling out. It was like being in an abusive relationship. Like, I was like, oh, this is what abused women are like experiencing in domestic violence. Like, that job was, it was horrible. The people were horrible. And I remember when I finally acknowledged that I gotta let this job go, but God blessed me with a layoff.
Mhm.
So I had some benefits coming, but I was like, and I remember I prayed for it. Ooh, let me tell you.
Ugh.
So I was um I was at this one job, and the my boss was horrible. People told me about her, but I was like, I was like, I haven't had that experience until I had that experience. I was like, oh snap. Ooh, she does have a demon inside her. Ooh, we gotta rebuke that.
Ooh,
But
that's like
I remember I went to church. It was a Wednesday night Bible study, and I said, I got up for testimony. I said, you know how you get sick of a job and you almost don't care if you get fired, but then you do care if you get fired because you want to be a good steward. But then you're like, I could let it go. But I love the work that I do, but the environments become hostile. I said,
mhm.
that's what I'm going through now. I said, just keep me in prayer because I want to remain a good steward. And then that December, my benefits were attached to that job.
Mm.
And we used to always, because I'm a professor, so we used to always have to. I'm also a professor, as well as my consulting. Long story short, COVID hit.
Oh God.
And God gave me another set of classes at a different institution, and I got to work from home, and I got insurance. So I was grieving letting it go, and I was grieving the way it went, because I had attachments, I had relationships, and
Mhm.
then it was gone. But that was also, I find that when we're grieving, it's a part of life, and it's also an opportunity for us to shed some layers of other
Ooh,
things that we may not have been able to acknowledge or tap into because we've been putting all our energy into this other thing.
that's so true. Ooh, I know what that feels like. So personal. So personal right now.
Mm.
Ooh. So tell the people who you are. What do you do? What are you all about? Let us know something.
All right, so I'm Eileen Pippins, a consummate consultant. I do organizational strategy. I do executive and life coaching. I'm a communications and advertising professor, and I'm working on my doctorate in organizational psychology. So, what I love doing is helping business owners, teams, and businesses transform the way they do business, specifically in a way that empowers their workforce. I focus in on both workforce development and diversity, equity, and inclusion. Um, and I have a blog called Morning Cup of Convo, which is around what are the daily conversations that you get to have with yourself in order
Mm,
to achieve the life that you want and that you're worthy of. Because a lot of times we have these conversations that don't serve the life that we want or the life that we even believe we're worthy of. Sometimes, and another, when you talk about grieving, you talk about like weight loss. People grieve the life they had when they weren't in their optimal health because they were comfortable with it. So, what are the different things that you can, the different conversations you can have to help empower you and take you on the journey to where God has you? God wants you, not just where God has you. What else? What else do I want to say?
I
What
love
else?
your job. I
Thank you.
love it. Sounds very empowering. Why do you care to do the things that you do? Like that sounds like a lot of community work. That sounds like a lot of heaviness of other people's stuff.
Well, actually, what I've learned, tell you a little bit about my journey. So funny, full circle moment. So when I was in high school, I thought I wanted to be a teacher. No, first I wanted to be a nurse. Then I wanted to be a teacher, and I ended up studying business. Um, then I did a transition from business and ended up coming back into teaching. I was like, oh, look at me. I'm a teacher. I'm an educator. And what I found is, especially my passion for teaching, is I want people to have the type of experience and feel empowered learning from some of my best teachers. Shout out to Mrs. Allums, who was my pre-K teacher. She was part of a village. Like she lived in my neighborhood. She went to the church across the street from my house. And when my parents were separating, I'm not going to show you the picture, but I remember I didn't know what acting out was because I was a daddy's girl. And when he left the house, I was missing him. It was funny because he would be there every night to tuck us in, but then he would leave. And I remember when it came time for pictures, I remember this. I was cutting up in class in pre-K, and Mrs. Allums couldn't take no more, and she gave me a little spanking.
That's that old school parenting right there. That's that
where my mother trusted her.
Listen.
Yeah. My mother and my father they trust
Don't
the
do that no
village.
more.
You can't. You don't want everybody putting their hands on your child.
No,
You know,
you don't. Back in the day, it took a village to raise a child. It happened. They knew at school that you got in trouble. By the time you made it to the block, the neighbor knew, the people at church knew, your aunties and uncles knew, everybody knew your business, and everybody was trying to tell that child what not to do or what should they do. So that's what I mean by that.
Yeah, and she did it in love because I never stopped.
Love, yes.
I loved her even more, and I didn't. She was as tall. Well, she was a little shorter than my mother. That one, but she was a giant to me. I saw her not too long ago, and I remember she was like 4'11". I was like, Miss Allums, she's this little because I'm 5'9". I was like, oh my god, and just I had teachers that poured into me that helped me validate my learning style. And so that's what I try and do. That like your experience is your experience, and how you learn is how you learn. And there are not too many, but there's enough, sadly, people out there that don't know how to teach to the students. They teach to their own expertise and ego.
Okay.
So that's why I think I fell into it. And then I wanted to be a marriage family therapist. But I was like, this part, I was like, because I've been a substance abuse consultant, so I did help do assessments to see where people needed inner outpatient treatment. And I remember when I'd be doing these assessments, sometimes people would come and be recurring people. And I remember I'm trying to pour into them, I'm talking to them, but they weren't ready. And I said, well, how can I help serve people, mainly my people, if they didn't have insurance? So that's why I wanted to go into when grief comes with the loss of a relationship. Whew, how do I deal with that? When grief comes with the loss of a relationship? Oh my gosh. Okay. Don't let me forget that question, Toni. Let me finish this thought.
Question.
So when I wanted to help us, I was like, at the time when I was in school, most of us, therapy was still taboo. So people aren't going to go to therapy unless they had insurance. And I said, so I'll be a marriage family therapist or a social worker. And I was like, but the reinforcement for those tools that they would use are harder culturally to enforce or help practice in your home. But people can feel empowered and practice those same tools in their work. So that's why I went into organizational psychology. And I've been loving every minute of it, helping people reaffirm their why, propel themselves, be higher performers, be better communicators. So that's how I got to there. Now to Latoya's point, some just flashed, so you have to drop stuff in the chat. I can't see y'all chat stuff. Sometimes grief
comes. I'm bring it back up because before you give the advice on this, I remember feeling like this. What Latoya is saying, when I went through my divorce, it felt like a death. Mm-hmm. And I remember when I was first going through it, I had an actual pastor come up to me, a woman pastor come up to me, and she was like, "You better fix it. Your daughter's gonna despise you. Fix this. Don't get a divorce." And she
Mm.
was like, it's like a death. It's like a death. In her intentions, I think that she didn't really mean to come off so strong. I really wanted her to hug me. I really wanted her to pray for me at the time. Because if you would have poked me, I would have shattered into a bunch of pieces.
Mhm.
And when she said that to me, I literally ran out the church and I never came back for after a whole year,
Mhm.
you know? And it
Hurt
did.
people, hurt people, hurt
Yeah.
people, hurt people.
And they do. And when I thought about it later, I said she must have went through something exactly like what I went through. And maybe she didn't know how to like give me advice or tell me what to do. So she did whatever she could do. But she was right. It did feel like that. It still feels like that. And it's been 8 years. It
It's
still feels
okay.
like that. So
You don't always get through. You don't stop loving somebody just because you break up.
right.
Best
And
weight loss I had was when I left that man and prayed that second prayer.
oof. So what you got for us? 'Cause I want to know too.
um so the first thing is, again, I'm sorry that you experienced that. Hurt people hurt people. And we have to remember in the moment, like, we, especially as Black women, we have not been afforded the opportunity to feel safe sometimes talking about and using our voice to say, but what about me? When my mother died, I had women coming up to me all up and down my family saying, Eileen, it's up to you now. You got to take care of your brothers. And I need you to know both of my brothers were involved. One was married, one was not.
Mhm.
They had women. I was single. Not one woman in my family on either side. Well, actually, there were no women left on my father's side. Oh no, yes, there are. Sorry, cousins. Y'all wasn't at the funeral. They were all Midwest back east. They love me. But none of the women who are close to me poured into me.
Yeah.
We love our sons and raise our daughters. And so we have not been afforded the opportunity to practice our voices, to feel our own power. So that ascension is when feeling your voice come up and say, and what about me?
And what about me?
And in that moment, you didn't have that. What you did was best for you was to separate. And what she was doing when you were telling that story, all I could see is Whoopi Goldberg in The Color Purple, holding up the sugar cane.
All I can see is Satan.
Heaven,
Time.
look, trouble don't last always. Heaven lasts forever. That's what's like she's pouring into you.
Uh-huh.
And so to deal with a relationship. Now, I just had this conversation yesterday with real good sister friend, one of my good girlfriends. We were talking about when you're grieving the loss of a friendship. Sometimes, like, you have to let them run their seasons, and you get to, you can't put you first. You can't put them first and put you first. When is it going to be that someone's going to help pour into you? And so, when you're grieving a season in a relationship, sometimes it ends, sometimes it's a winter, so it's just in hibernation. But the first thing I do is I acknowledge my feelings. I got to check in, and I got to say, what am I feeling? And then what do I want to do about it? So that's the first thing when you're grieving
That's
a
not always easy though. That sounds good. But when
relationship.
you in the moment,
But you asked me what I do, and you didn't ask me, was it easy? I didn't say it was easy.
yeah.
I told you I cried over that man for, God, a good month. I'm not going to talk about the phone calls that I had, the interventions with my girlfriends saying, you don't call them, just say what you feeling. And they were there for me to be wailing on the phone because I missed him. I missed the relationship and what it was, but obviously ended because it wasn't what it was. It turned and transitioned into something else that wasn't serving either one of us. So it's not about it being easy. Again, we were talking about this too. There's a lot of exercise programs out there that guarantee that you can lose all this weight and get healthy without excess exercise or changing your diet, and like you could
Mhm.
work out twice a week. But what am I doing those other days? That's not serving me. And it's not supposed to be easy. It's not a movie. This ain't, for those of you that don't know about the movie of the week, this ain't a movie of the week. It's not going to resolve itself in 30 minutes
Blockbusters.
or at the end of the series. It is life be lifing. And remember, as long as we're alive and we're in relationship, it's how do we relate to somebody else? You relating with another person. One of my good girlfriends, shout out to Alicia. I'll never forget this. And shout out to my nephew. She said, she was looking at her son one day, and he was riding his bike up the street. Go on,
Mhm.
Rashad. This is you may remember this. He rode his bike up the street. She was looking through her window, and she's like, "Look at my baby." And then, as he passed the window coming back, he was standing on the seat riding. She was like, "Oh my God, he's crazy. I don't want him to hurt himself." And then she said, "My baby ain't crazy. I forgot he got 2 sets of DNA." I'll never forget that. It's like the DNA that went past the first time, that was hers, and his daddy was coming back, standing on the seat, feeling invincible, trying to
Okay.
do this, right? So it's not easy, and we're dealing with people. Like if it was easy, we'd all have the perfect relationship. We'd still be married.
That's
We'd be
right.
engaged. We'd be living this life of old school movies like um I grieve the movies of the 90s where black people were represented and we had good families, whole families.
Mm.
Um, we don't see that anymore. So it's not a movie, and it's not. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it, and it would be called utopia. We wouldn't be oppressed the way we are. We would have more strength, more community. But that's the first thing that I do. I can only speak for me, and it's not always easy. I'm still human. But I acknowledge, okay, what am I feeling? I'm feeling this loss. I
Yeah.
want my friend back. I want my sister friend back. I want the relationship back. And then I grieve it because then I acknowledge, okay, how did it transition out? How did it
Mm.
make its transition? And what did I do?
Yeah.
Because part of that release in the grief is saying, let me acknowledge my part. It's like the serenity prayer. Lord, grant me the strength to change the things that I can, the
Change.
wisdom to know. Oh no, what is it? Lord, grant me the strength to the y'all look up the serenity prayer.
I know what it is. I can
It's
sing.
it's the wisdom to know the difference. Help me to change the things I can. Um, the the strength to change the things I can. Um, and then to be able to release the things that I can't, and the wisdom to know the difference. I can't control nobody else but me.
You can't. You
So that's
can't.
how I deal with grieving relationships is is acknowledging that grief. It's not about fixing it. It's saying, what do I want from it? And then asking the Lord to help me how I get to release it. And releasing doesn't mean you're releasing with hate. You're releasing it.
Yeah.
Forgiveness and grief is a whole nother thing.
It sure is. That's a whole nother show.
Whole
That's a
nother.
whole nother show. Thank you so much for giving me your gems on how you have ascended through grief and the choices that you made dealing with this subject. How to be, how to feel. Like, um, that was wonderful. That was wonderful.
Yeah.
Now, I know there's people that's still out here dealing with grief, and not just in the way as we were speaking earlier, as in losing someone. It could just also be meaning losing a job, that house, that relationship, that I don't know, that goal or whatever it is that came up against you. I know there's somebody out there that's really, really hurting and just they can't see, they can't
Mm.
figure out a way to get through it. What are your lasting words that you can give to community for inspiration?
Mm. Great question. First, have grace with yourself. Nobody can tell you how to grieve. It's not getting over grief, it's getting through grief. Sometimes it's moment by moment, especially during the holidays, during this fall into winter time. Our emotions are regulated also by the moon and the sun. The days get darker. We start longing for more comfort. We're hibernating, and hibernating means we're going in, but it's nice to go in with somebody. And if you don't have anybody, you have yourself. You can always just have grace with yourself because you're always with you. That's one. Um, get a list. I call it a top 5. Shout out to my therapist for this one. Con- get a top list of top 5 people. These are the people that you call when you need to talk or when you just need an ear. And you let them know, hey, Toni, do you have like 5-10 minutes? And they say, oh, what's going on? You say, I just need to talk. Girl, let me tell you. Okay, let me call you back. Click, go to number 2. You keep going and recycle the list until you get to somebody who can give you a dedicated amount of time just so you can talk or just sit. Even if you can't, I've had moments as the holidays approach because both my parents died starting around Thanksgiving and right before Christmas. So within that 2 months, so the holidays, I'll start feeling melancholy sometimes. I don't even know it's coming. I don't know why. And I'm like, got it. So you need to be able to have somebody who understands that and let them know sometimes you just need to, I need to talk to somebody. If they can call you back, great, but this is not chit chat catch up time. And then the last thing is practice feeling your feelings. I'll often talk to people when I'm talking about interpersonal communication and the way that people often say, I want a man. I don't want to be angry. Well, what's wrong with being angry? That's feedback for you that you don't like something or that something has caused some friction for you. It's okay to feel angry. Let's concentrate on practicing how we express being angry. So again, be patient with yourself. This for a lot of us, some of these emotions are still new, it's still fresh because we don't get to practice them a lot, especially since we're just kind of coming out of quarantine. So be okay and practice feeling your feelings. Feel them. Feel where they are in your body so that way you recognize them when they come up. And then when you need to talk to somebody and you say, oh, you know what, my bad. This is what I'm feeling. Just start with there. And even if it's just with yourself, say, oh man, this is what I'm feeling, and feel the feelings. Feel them. They're there. That's what makes your heart so beautiful because God allows you to feel. Imagine for people who don't have the ability to feel. That's all I got.
That was nice. Where can people find you if they want to follow you?
Oh, well, we ain't really thick in these Instagram streets. I am, you can find me on, you can look up Morning Cup of Convo on YouTube. You can go to my website, Eileen Pippins, consulting.com, and you can look at my blog. If you are looking for coaching, you can also find me on LinkedIn. But that's about it. I'm not thick in these social media streets.
That's okay. That's okay. We appreciate you for coming on today. Thank you for your gems. And hey, I appreciate what you're doing in our community. You are definitely a pillar and offering your services, and being a Black woman caring about us is very much appreciative. And keep on ascending because you've been ascending.
Yes.
Did you know that you was ascending?
I knew I was.
Think about that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I could tell you. This is what I was going to tell you about. This is how I knew one of the areas I knew I was ascending. So my last name is Pippins. There's no M, but I love you. My grandfather had Pippin Garage in Richmond, California with no S. And he said, if you ever start a business, you got to drop that S because that connotes slave ownership. And when you own your own business, you don't belong to nobody. So he was Pippin Garage. He was one of the first Black business people in Richmond, California. Then my father was Pippin Diesel Company, no S. And then here I come in these streets, being a consultant and a coach. And I remember I was going to be Pippin Consulting Company at first. And but I came up in the age of the internet. So that's confusing. Plus, when I was first in my in graduate school getting my master's, I learned about publishing. So if I publish as Eileen Pippins, it's going to be people are going to have a hard time finding me as Pippin Consulting Company. And something that I ascended from that I really grieved. I grieved this great responsibility from my ancestors that my first, well, this would be my second business. My first business when I was 13 selling candy. But my first official business was going to be to honor my grandfather and my father. And I was like, I can't, I almost didn't start the business because I struggled with that connection for my family. So I had to ascend to say I'm honoring my family by owning this business. And then at first it was a different name that had nothing to do with my name. And then I became Eileen Pippins Consulting, and I love it because Eileen Pippins is standing on the shoulders of Henry Pippins and of Thomas Pippins, and even my grandmother on my mother's side, she had a business when back in Oklahoma. So,
oh wow, that's my home state.
ah,
We might be cousins.
we might be. We might be. When did you know? When did you ascend?
Oh my God, my whole life. My whole life. Coming out of foster care system, growing up in the system from 8 years old, aging out of the system at 18. Moving to California at 21 with no resources, no family, no friends, trying to be an actress, a struggling actress. Losing my job after being on my job for 16 years, thinking I was going to retire from there, going through a divorce, having kids, one natural birth. I can go on and on. That's a whole nother 5 hours of a show.
And those moments of recognizing that these are these beautiful turning points that we ascend from.
Yes. And the biggest thing is that it's a choice. It's a choice, like you mentioned today. You got tired of, isolating yourself. You made a decision that if I do it today, I'm not going to do it tomorrow. It's okay if I am grieving. It's okay if I am in this situation. It's okay if I do feel this way. But tomorrow, I'm not going to feel like that. Tomorrow, I'm going to do something different. Tomorrow, I'm going to be something different. And then just as you mentioning, like the different classes and different things that you can do every day. Today, I'm going to do a class. Tomorrow, I'm going to dance. The next day, I'm going to do some art. Let me sit down and do some writing. Let me get on my knees and pray. Let me call a friend on that list. Those are all gems of life. And this is what we go through, community. You don't have to grieve over life. And life is so short that we don't want to continue to grieve over life. There's always
if I can just add this.
Yeah.
You can take time to grieve. It's okay to grieve.
Yes.
You don't want that grief to stop you.
To keep you stagnant.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And that's what ascending is about. It all ties into the same thing. And so thank you so much for this subject today. Thank you for your input, your impact that you made today on this show. I hope that somebody heard something. I hope that this helps someone to ascend through what they're grieving over. And like she said, you don't have to get over grieving. Just don't stay stagnant. Just don't stay in that one spot while you're going through it. Because remember, something is planned for you on the other side, on the next day, the next week. It's going to get better, and it's going to get better, and it's going to get better. And I'm going to use that gem. I'm going to write down my 5 people. And I think I might have to write down 7 people because, you know.
whatever you need, and just let them know. You don't have to let them know when you make the list, but just know you could just be like, when you need to call them. But those top 5, I let people know. I let my top 5 know.
I like that. We got to use our mouth, y'all. We got to use these words in our brain, and we have to talk to one another, speak to one another. And if they say no, that's okay. Y'all, we are out of time. I love y'all. Thank you for commenting in the chat. Thank you for talking back to us. Thank you for coming on the show again. Go follow her if you need a life coach. I think she knows what she's doing, y'all. I think she knows what she's doing. So find her. We love y'all. Happy holidays. Don't stay stagnant, y'all. Keep going. Keep pushing yourself. You can do this. You got this. And if you feel alone, you know what to do. Come on this platform. Get some inspiration. We got your back. We love y'all. Until next time, peace, love, and keep ascending.
Keep ascending.
Ascending, gotta keep ascending. Yeah, even at your worst, you gotta keep your vision. That's the only way that you gonna keep ascending. Her pain is my pain, her struggle's my struggle.